7. We took the stairs down to the first floor and were headed out of the casino when I remembered something, so I called out to Asuna and Argo. Hang on. Can I go see what's happened with the ALS and the DKB's bets? The two girls were staring coldly at me before the words were all the way out of my mouth, so I quickly shook my head to reassure them. No, not because I'm jealous. I'm just saying, what if there's some weird reason that they've been winning big?
Well, I can't rule that out, but I don't think they've hit the final match yet,
Argo pointed out. I glanced at the clock readout. It felt like we'd been taking a long time in Ninir's room, but it was only 10 minutes after 10 p.m. If memory served, the matches of the night schedule happened at 9, 9:20, 9:40, 10, and 10:30. That meant the fourth match had probably just wrapped up. If both guilds were still on a winning streak, they would both be in absolute frenzy right now. I'm only going to see, I claimed, hurrying down the basement stairs. The moment I passed through the doors to the battle arena, the excitement of the gamblers washed over me. If they hadn't lost in the second or third match, the DKB and ALS would still be at their dining tables. I slipped through the milling NPCs in search of a spot with a clear view at the bars when...
Huh? Kirito?
I twitched, coming to a panicked stop. To my right was a woman wearing a baggy half-sleeve shirt and baggy three-quartered pants. Her orangish hair was cut neatly over her thick eyebrows, and beyond that, her eyes and nose were cute and childish. It felt like I might have seen that face somewhere before. "Who are you again?" I asked awkwardly. The girl looked up at me sullenly, then pointed above her own head. Floating along with her color cursor was the name Liten. Oh, Liten, I shouted, right as Asuna caught up with me and slapped me on the back. You forgot what she looked like? That's really rude, Kirito. I didn't forget who she was. That she's not wearing her usual plate armor.
That's another way of saying you forgot what she looks like,
Argo helpfully pointed out. But I've barely even seen her actual face.
Then you should be looking at her cursor.
If I look at her cursor, it's going to make it obvious I don't remember her name, I argued. Litten's pout suddenly exploded into laughter.
You folks haven't changed a bit.
Liten was known as the plate armor girl of ALS. Not only was she the only few women in the frontline group, but she was also a crucial tank with top-class physical defense. We'd been on friendly terms with her since she'd helped us out during the ALS shortcut taking incident on the 5th floor. But as an awkward teen, I wasn't very comfortable in her presence. That was because Liten had a partner, the track and field member from DKB, Shivada. I had no idea how to act around a girl with a boyfriend. How friendly were you allowed to be? So I chose to keep myself about 3 feet away and was careful not to get too casual when speaking to her. So where were you going just now, Liten? The 5th match is about to start, isn't it?
That,
she said, glancing behind her at the buffet bar.
I got too nervous and sweaty, so I decided I'd rather not watch the 5th match in person.
No, what a waste, I yelled. Asuna pushed me out of the way.
I know how you feel. I'm not a fan of this kind of weird tension either. Exactly. Even the floor boss fights are better. At least there I'm doing something.
Where were you going to wait for the results to come back, Liten?
I don't know. I was just going to wander around the first floor, I suppose.
Then why don't you come with us and have some tea?
Oh, that sounds lovely, but all the places around the casino are so expensive.
The bar counters in the first floor casino room have normal prices.
Let's go there then.
It was such a quick and efficient conversation that it might as well come out of a script. The two women started walking towards the exit. I made eye contact with Argo, then followed their lead. This was unexpected, but getting to hear the story straight from Liten would be huge. We went up the stairs to the playroom. The bar counters were on the left and right sides of that center pillar, so we went to the left one, which was less busy. You could pay a coal here rather than chips, so Argo and I ordered an ale, while Asana and Liten ordered sangria, which was red wine steeped with fruits and spices, apparently. Our drinks came out in 3 seconds, so we shared a quick toast. It was nice and cool inside the casino, but even still, the ale had a pleasant chilling effect that refreshed my entire body. I would have preferred it to be nearly freezing, but ice was a luxury in Eincrad. I almost asked Argo about having another snow tea bud, but it was a bit of a minty taste, which would clash with the ale. I downed half the mug at once and exhaled with delight, as did Argo. Back on the first floor, I thought this stuff was just bitterly sour liquid. But at some point, I'd lost my resistance to the flavor and usually ordered it whenever it was available. I was going to have a beer craving if I ever got back to the real world. Asana and Liten downed their sangria, gulping noisily. The red wine with chopped fruit floating in it would normally have at least 10% alcohol content, but in this virtual world, you could drink an entire barrel of the stuff without suffering any kind of alcohol poisoning. It was 10:20, 10 minutes before the fifth and final match began. Hopefully, we could learn what we wanted to hear by then. I figured the best way to start would be to ask Liten, who was sitting across from Asana on my right, what she thought of Volupta so far. But Argo, who was on Asana's right, spoke up first.
Hey, Lee-chan, what's up with Kabao and Lin getting so hooked on the monster battles? Neither of them's the type to put all their cash into gambling.
Why are you asking her right off the bat? I thought in a panic, but Liten was not suspicious of the question in the slightest.
That's right, I agree, but they're not just gambling recklessly without any kind of plan. Meaning?
The DKB came into the main town yesterday, as did we. Today? At 1 a.m. We took in rooms and met up at 7, ate breakfast, and went to the square, where there are 2 gates out of the town. That's when an NPC came to talk to us.
An NPC? Was there supposed to be an event?
Wondered Argo. Asa and I were confused as well. Presumably Liten was talking about where the statues of the man with the staff and the man with the goblet stood, but no NPCs came to speak to us there.
Maybe it was a first-come, first-serve event, then. It was a rather plain-looking man who asked us if we wanted to buy a cheat sheet for the Volupta Monster Coliseum.
Cheat sheet? I blurted out, unable to believe what I was hearing. He was totally ripping you off.
I thought so too, and so did everyone else, I bet,
Liten said, grimacing. She turned to Argo and continued.
The cheat sheet only cost 100 coal. That was all it cost for a list of every monster appearing in today's daytime and nighttime events, including their names, features, and even chances of winning, plus a map to Volupta, a primer on the monsters on the way, even a guide to the town. That sounds like quite a welcoming guide. This guy's gonna put me out of business. I was assuming there was another player out there who knew all about the casino. Instead, it's an NPC, Argo wailed. Some of us thought it was suspicious that it cost so little, but Kiba said it was worth a shot for a pricey meal's cost. We bought the cheat sheet and headed down the Tailwind Road. The map was accurate, and so was the information on the monsters. We were in Volupta in no time. So we decided to try out the monster battle. We converted 1,000 coal into 10 chips and put them all on the monster that the cheat sheet gave 2 circles for the best chances. And we won. So we turned 10,000 coal into 100 chips for the next one and won again. Liten paused there to drink more sangria. Argo was deep in thought and decided to sound out what was on her mind. Meaning, Kibao and his pals kept betting on the better odds from the cheat sheet and winning big. Very nice for them.
I suppose that NPCs knows not to sell his cheat sheet to especially greedy players, needled Asuna. I smiled back at her and shot back, that would mean you were included in that assessment. I figured she was going to give me one of her usual rib jabs, but instead she just beamed at me. As evidence of my generosity, I'll give you this. Then she picked up a big piece of citrus fruit from her glass on the sangria and dropped it into my mug of ale. Hey, what was that for? Maybe it'll make your drink taste better. No way. I lifted the mug to my lips, imagining the spraying a poison mist attack in Asuna's face as if it turned out to taste nasty. Something that would mean my instant death. Instead, I swished it around for flavor. It's not bad. See? I'm pretty sure there's a cocktail called a bitter orange, which is beer with orange juice added. You just thought of that off the top of your head, I accused. On the other side of the table, Liten laughed. You really do make a good team. Oh, I wouldn't say that, Asuna claimed, clearing her throat and changing the subject. Anyway, I'm guessing both the ALS and the DKB were contacted by this man with the cheat sheet. Yes. When I saw him earlier tonight, Sheba said so, she mentioned, casually dropping the nickname for her boyfriend. Asuna was momentarily taken back, losing the thread of the conversation, but she recovered quickly. How many chips did you win through the previous match? I think it was just over 50,000. That was a bit less than I expected. But it was probably because the cheat sheet didn't always recommend that the monster with the higher odds. Meaning, if they bet on a monster with a double payout in the final match, they'll reach 100,000 chips, Asuna said. Liten nodded. That's right, but the group is arguing over which one to bet on. In the fifth match, the sheet placed a circle on the monster with the better chance, and a triangle on the one that's less likely. But the odds are about double for the triangle and the 1.5 for the circle. And you always been betting on the one that's the better symbol? Yes. Some of the members lobbied for less likely symbol up until the third match during the day, but since all the results turned out like the cheat sheet said, they've been going strictly by the text tonight. Doesn't this seem a bit too convenient? I interjected. The gambler in me might have been annoyed, but my gamer senses were telling me something was suspicious about this. Is it possible that a cheat sheet could cost 100 coal, could be 100% accurate about its picks? Knowing how the game events usually work, it could easily turn out that the very last match is the one where the other monster wins, and you lose everything you built up. Oh, Chicken said the same thing, Liten noted. I had to think for a moment before I realized she was talking about Schickenspeck. According to Asuna, that was a type of ham made in Austria. Not that it explained why he would have chosen that for a character name. Chicken said the last match might be a trap, and if we bet on the triangle mark that's worth twice as much, we'd have over 100,000 chips and be able to buy that sword with the incredible qualities. Ikura and Valder agreed with Chicken, and that's when I left, so I don't know who they put our money on. Who's Valder? I asked. I remembered Hokai Ikura, but the other name was a new one, so I was curious. Litten exhaled and took a deep breath. Schwarzwalder Kirchstorch, officially another tank in our guild. A long-standing member, too. It's only recently that Valder really got the hang of the role and made up it to the team. I see. Numerical aspects of the game like HP and skill proficiency would always rise if you kept working on them, but innate player skill was a different thing. And in a full dive game, that kind of skill was even more important than in classic RPGs. The amount of time and effort one put into a single sword skill varied by the individual. Knowing what to do in a group fight required even more expertise, and being able to deal with a monster in your face while tracking the state of your party members, guild members, and the battle of the whole was something that required knowledge, experience, and natural talent. I'd always been a solo tracker focused on damage, so my player skill wasn't so great that I could speak as an authority on group battles. I was grateful to players like Valder, who did their best to become first-rate warriors who could stand among the best. It was a very difficult name to remember, but that was a minor problem in the grand scheme of things. I glanced down to the right. The clock said 10:25, just 5 minutes until the fifth match. The ALS and the DKB would have finished buying their tickets by now. In just moments, they would either seize glory or plunge into despair. To be perfectly honest, I wanted to see that in real time, but it was a bit ghoulish of me. There was something else important we needed to ask Liten about. Thank you, Liten. That catches us up on the big competition between Lint and Gabao, hoping for the best for both of them. But I have another question, I said. Litten's face tightened up, and she nodded. You must be referring to Buxom. The three of us bobbed our heads. Buxom was a member of the PK gang that had infiltrated the DKB. As an ALS member, Liten might not have ever met him, but in the meeting between the two guilds last night, Lind would surely have explained whatever he knew. She drained the last of her sangria, took a deep breath, and said, The DKB has more of a quality over quantity philosophy than us, but they're still openly recruiting new members. They're not scouting out anyone who will join like us, but they are handing out papers in big towns on the lower floors, and then they hold a membership assessment drive on the town at beginnings. I never heard of someone refer to the handouts as papers rather than leaflets or flyers, but that wasn't important now. Assessment drive. What are they assessing? That's what I asked Sheba. He said level, stats, and skill makeup on the first test, a demonstration of a sword skill on the second test, and a duel with a guild member on the third test. Third test, I muttered, the corner of my mouth twitching tensely. Are they going to get anyone to apply? I asked Asuna, the skepticism wafting from her tone. But Lin actually noted, there are more and more mid-rank players lately, and they want to break into the frontline group. They get 20 or 30 applicants each time, he said. A big part of that is the DKB, is the guild carrying on Diavel's dream. I haven't had the chance to talk to them myself, but apparently he's like a legendary hero to the players in the middle floors, though Kabao's a good leader too. The mention of his name caused me to remember Diavel the night as I knew him. He perished in the battle against the first floor boss on December 14th, and today was January 5th. It was impossible to believe that it had only been a month, but that was certainly enough time for him to become a legend among the mid-level players, I supposed. Litten's voice broke the brief silence. Buxom took part in an assessment drive at the end of December and had fought Hafner to a duel in the third round of the test. That's when they decided to let him join the guild. End of December, I repeated, constructing a mental timetable of our progress through Einkrad. The impromptu raid party of Asuna, Argo, Litten, and me beat the 5th floor boss on the night of December 31st. At the end of the year, nobody had information about the quest series on the 6th floor. Beta testers were another story, but even in the test, the golden cube in the Curse of Statuen quest didn't have paralyzing powers. So if Buxom had joined the DKB with the intent of stealing the golden cube from the start, the PK gang, led by the man in the black poncho, had to have gained information from some route other than the beta tester's knowledge. Buxom, Morche, the dagger user in the black mask, and the man in the black poncho, Asuna said, counting them off on her fingers, which she clenched into a fist. I wonder how many of people are in that PK gang total.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of that myself, but I can't even find out where they gather,
Argo noted with frustration.
Don't do anything too risky, Argo, Asuna told her. They're dangerous and crafty. You have no idea where they could be lurking in wait.
She was right. We suspected that the PK Asuna called the dagger user in the black mask might have actually been a senior member of the ALS named Joe, but we unfortunately had no hard evidence yet. I wanted to ask Liten about Joe, but if she realized we suspected him of foul play and confused him directly, there was a possibility she could get singled out next.
What's wrong with them?
Liten grumbled, holding her empty glass with both hands.
PKing in the situation we're in, interfering with our ability to beat the game, is only prolonging our release from SAO.
I couldn't answer that for her. Asuna and I had been tormented by the same question ever since we learned of their existence. There wasn't just any logic behind the actions of the Black Poncho and his friends, but in a sense, that was one of their greatest advantages. The sheer irrationality of intentionally ruining a deadly game made it much harder to anticipate their actions. I had to take a swig of orange-flavored ale to wash the bitterness out of my mouth. From the right end of the table, I heard Argo say,
"Do you know what the battle test is?"
The other three of us shook our heads. The term was unfamiliar.
It's something a game researcher created a long time ago. Basically, the idea is that you can classify all gamers into one of 4 types.
4 types? Liten repeated. Argo held up a finger.
The first is achievers. That's the type of player who tries to reach a goal set up within the game. Maxing out your level, getting all the best gear, finishing every quest, getting all the trophies.
I was never much for getting all the trophies, I thought, but I couldn't say it out loud before she held up a second finger.
Second is the explorers. The folks who get excited for exploring the unknown and finding out things on their own. Walking across every part of the world map, charging into dungeons and bosses you've never seen before, stubbornly trying to jump or climb up every wall and slope.
Oh, that might be me. I thought it, but again, I did not have time to say it out loud.
The third is socializers. These are the people who play games to socialize with others. They love playing cooperatively, running guilds, and just standing around on the map and chatting for hours.
This time, Asuna spoke up, before I could even think of a comment. That's exactly the opposite of whatever Kirito is. Liten made a bizarre "fmph" sound. Her head was pointed at the ground, so I could only assume she was holding back laughter. Argo briefly paused to smirk, then continued her lecture.
And the fourth group is killers. Those who derive enjoyment from killing other players.
The smiles vanished from Asuna and Liten's faces. They froze, so I asked Argo, meaning the PK gang is made up of these killers?
Well, I don't think it's meant to be that simple. I don't take the battle test all that seriously myself, but I think that out of all the real players trapped in SAO, some of them are gonna have a real high resistance to PKing, and some of them are gonna have a lower resistance. That kind of folk who might just hop over that hurdle if the right thing gets whispered into their ear.
Her voice was soft enough that I could just barely hear it at the other end of the table. Argo drained the rest of her mug, which was still half full. Like Asuna and Liten, I was having trouble knowing what to say. If you needed to hear the right whisper in your ear, like Argo said, then how did the whisper get over that hurdle in the first place? Unless it was some kind of person who had no resistance to killing someone else from the start.
It's showtime!
The words replayed in my mind without my say-so, and my body tensed. Asuna must have sensed my chills because she said very calmly, "This has been very useful information, Argo." Then she shrugged and smirked mischievously. "But I don't think I fit into any of these types." I agreed with that. I mean, could you even define Asuna as a gamer? But Argo just smiled and hissed through her teeth. With laughter,
In that case, I propose a fifth category for you, A-chan. How about progressors?
"Progressors?" The three of us said in unison. "So, I'm making progress. Where am I going?"
Wherever you should be progressing,
said Argo, an evasive non-answer to the question. From somewhere below, there was a distant sound of cheering. It seemed the fifth match had just begun. "Are you headed back, Liten?" asked Asuna. Liten considered this, then replied,
Now, if they win, they'll come up here to exchange the chip for their prize. So I'll wait for them.
"Okay. Well, I think we'll move on then."
Don't you want to know the results? If Kirito has to watch them claim that 100,000 sword, he's going to weep with jealousy,
Asuna said smugly, eliciting giggles and grins from Liten and Argo. I wouldn't weep, I protested. If anything, I'd just throw a little fit. "That's plenty pathetic," Asuna said, rolling her eyes. I got to my feet along with her, but Argo stayed seated with Liten.
I'll wait to see the results. You two go back to the suite first.
"Okay, see you later then. Thanks for talking with us, Liten."
My pleasure. It was fun.
Asuna beamed and waved at them, and I held up my hand and closed it once I left the counter. The cheers from the floor below rolled like a wave on the shore. It seemed that the final bout was quite a showstopper. "If you really want to watch, I'll join you," Asuna said, walking towards the door. I grimaced. "No, I'm fine. After what Nanir told us, I don't think I could enjoy watching the competition." "That's true. By the way, Kirito, do you think she's..." She trailed off. I looked over, but Asuna shook her head and said, "No, never mind." 40 minutes later, when Argo returned to the Amber Moon Inn, we heard from her that both the ALS and the DKB had lost their bets in the last match. Along with it, all of the 50,000 plus chips they had won prior to it.